So Fahed, are people going to lose their jobs because of ChatGPT?
This is ChallengerBrands, helping you build better brands and businesses. Hosted by Illustrado, the brand development and creative agency for ambitious and audacious challenger brands.
Welcome to another episode of Challenger Brands, where we help entrepreneurs and brand custodians build better brands and businesses. I'm Lelenchu Benitez, Managing Director here at Illustrado.co. We are a brand development and creative agency for ambitious and audacious brands. And our episode today is again supported by our partners, Rove Hotels. We have a very special guest today in the house, Mr. Chaos Wrangler himself, the Fahed Bizzari. Fahed, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fahed, okay, let me just read this out for our audiences and our listeners right now. Fahed is an international thought leader on the professional application of ChatGPT. He has 18 years of experience in software development, 2 decades in entrepreneurship, in consulting and training. You've spent 3,000 hours. And I'm guessing maybe that's close to 4,000 hours now on ChatGPT.
Exactly. I was just about to correct you on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So about 4,000 hours now on ChatGPT just to master the skill and the application. And I think what's brilliant about you, Fahed, is that you can really talk about complex concepts in a very simplified manner for people to understand.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm so happy to have you here on the show. And I'm hoping that you can shed some light on something that's really, I think, is becoming more and more pivotal. Especially with companies right now, ChatGPT.
Yeah. So first, let me just correct you. The 4,000 hours is not on ChatGPT. It's on GPT and ChatGPT.
Wow.
So GPT
Even
is the
better.
underlying technology that powers ChatGPT. And it's when they added the chat layer that we experience all the magic that we're experiencing today.
ChatGPT, I think it's a big, a lot of people simplify what ChatGPT is, right? You type in a question, it writes content for you or whatever. But I think to be able to understand this, and this I understand from you, is just the tip of the iceberg. Can you explain to us, break it down for us, basically what ChatGPT is?
Okay, so ChatGPT is a breakthrough in personal AI. And I don't know whether the breakthrough was actually intended or not, because the people at OpenAI themselves, when they released ChatGPT, they did not expect what happened. They were thinking, okay, they're on Twitter, we're going to get like lots of buzz on Twitter, maybe 5,000 comments. This is to quote their words, maybe 5,000 comments, and that's it. It's just going to go on, because OpenAI is it's a research institute. It's not supposed to be producing products like ChatGPT, which are commercialized. It's a research institute leading towards artificial general intelligence. And they released this evolution of GPT by adding the chat layer to it. So let's start with GPT. You can't understand what ChatGPT is until you understand what GPT is, okay? The best way to understand GPT is through a demo. So we're gonna do a demo together now, and hopefully all of your viewers and listeners are gonna understand it, all right? We will.
Rock you.
Okay, so I didn't even tell you what I'm gonna do. I didn't give you any explanation in advance. I just gave you something, and your pattern recognition in your mind recognized what the pattern was, and it continued on from there. We could do the same thing if I said, "Happy birthday."
To me.
Okay, well, it would be
I'm trying to be disobedient now.
Yeah. It would be. So,
Just
but that's
kidding,
the
yeah.
whole point, which is about pattern recognition. So if you think about it as human beings, we are who we are because of all the exposure we've had throughout our entire lives, where we were born, the type of upbringing we had, the type of education we had, the type of experiences we've had, where we've worked, etc. Now, if we were to document all of our personal experiences, in actual fact, you'll find that many other people have shared similar experiences. Things that we think were unique to us are not actually that unique. Many people have experienced the same type of heartache, the same type of failures, the same type of recoveries, the same type of successes. Now, if all of that was documented into humanity's knowledge and then given to an AI, and the AI was able to look at the patterns in all of that knowledge, you'll find that the AI can actually recognize those patterns and continue them in the same way. So I could go into GPT now and type in, we will, without even giving it the intonation of the song that I was singing to you, I could say to it, we will, and it will continue saying rock you. It won't just say rock you, it will give the rest of the song, which I don't know. We just know rock you. All right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it knows the rest of the song.
Okay.
Right? So this is what GPT is. And what ChatGPT is a conversational layer on top of it that makes it easy for us to interact with. And that's how we're experiencing all the magic today. Now, what do I mean by the tip of the iceberg? That is another question. Since the day that ChatGPT was released, everybody's been talking about it in ways like, oh, it can do essays for students, it can write articles, it can write reports. It's all talking about these kind of deliverables, okay? Now let's put ChatGPT to the side for a minute. And let's just imagine there's no AI, there's only me as a human being, and I am delivering a deliverable, which is a report. That report is the tip of an iceberg. That's what people see. I hand it over, I spread it out, I email it to everybody. What they see, just like the tip of an iceberg is what we see, they see the final deliverable. What they don't see is the hours that were spent in deliberation, thinking, planning, structuring, writing, rewriting, drafting, opinion seeking, researching, etc. So if you think about all of our endeavors as human beings, all of our endeavors can be represented by iceberg. You've got the final output, but then you have all of the input that came before it, which you don't see. That's below, right?
Which is the biggest chunk of work.
Which
there.
is that is the work. That
exactly.
really is the work, okay?
Definitely.
So let's move over to ChatGPT. You see somebody come up with, let's say, a good quality essay or a good quality report that they've produced through ChatGPT. What people don't see is what goes into it. Right? So when I say that people are playing with the tip of the iceberg, is that they're trying to use ChatGPT to produce deliverables without giving any due effort or concern towards the unseen part. So if you as a human being, you can't just go and produce a report just like that without putting in all of that effort and hours into the submerged part. Similarly, if you don't do that with ChatGPT, you just get bland, generic outputs. And that's what puts a lot of people off. And in the end, it actually increases people's workload because now they have mountains of editing work to do.
Exactly, yeah.
But what it does do is it reduces some mental burden by helping them overcome a creator's block. Because it's much easier to look at something and say, you know what, that's not what I want. What I actually want is this, than to actually come up with the idea yourself. So that's what I mean by the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
And the magic happens is when you merge the two icebergs together, where you have the ability, what we call metacognition, right? When you have the ability to think about what you think about, and be conscious of all the effort that goes into producing that deliverable, and then say, okay, instead of me doing all of those things, how can I push that into ChatGPT and transfer the bulk of my iceberg into ChatGPT? That's where the real magic happens.
Okay, I feel like we're gonna attack a real mountain here.
Okay.
This is it's a big discussion, and I'm gonna try and dissect it,
Sure.
as best as I can. But before that, and people might hate me for this, I want to scale back just a little bit. I want to go back to the question earlier of what exactly is, GPT and ChatGPT, just a little bit there. So when we say we will rock you, right? Does the tech then just pull whatever is already existing online? Or is there a third layer of the AI actually thinking, recognizing the patterns and making something out of it? Is it just pulling data, or is there something else that's happening?
It's actually neither of the above. So it's not pulling any data. It's not connected to any database like Google is. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that everybody makes, is that when they come to use ChatGPT, because they've never been exposed to this type of technology before, and they have no idea how it truly works, what happens is that people anchor their experience into things that they are familiar with. So they anchor it towards just normal software. They anchor it towards old school bots.
Yeah.
And the biggest one that they anchor it to is Google. So people think that behind the scenes, it's being connected to a database and it's bringing out the results. And that's why they get frustrated whenever it hallucinates or does something stupid, or the fact that the data only goes up to April this year, if you're using ChatGPT Plus. Otherwise, it's January 22 if you're still on basic. So people get frustrated because they think like, why can't it just know the latest news? Because it's not connected to a database. Then the second thing is GPT itself is not thinking. GPT is not thinking. GPT is just looking at the pattern in your input.
Okay.
And then it's looking at the patterns in its that it's being trained on, and then it matches the two together and goes from there. ChatGPT, however, has an extra layer of thinking, but it's not the type of thinking that we think. It's not like artificial intelligence, like this super bot. It's just being trained in a bunch of things like be polite, be helpful, don't be rude, don't be racist, make sure that your answers stay on track. So it has a whole load of, I forgot what it's called. It's called service. Let's just call it instructions, directives. It's called system directives. It has a bunch of system directives embedded into it, and it then interacts with GPT. So it tries to understand, what is this user actually wanting from me? What's the type of answer they're looking for? What kind of configuration do I need to set now that I'm going to work with GPT? Let me work with GPT, get what GPT gives me, and now let me give it back to the user in a friendly way. And now it looks like you're having a conversation with a genius. But in actual fact, there's hardly any thinking going on behind the scenes. And you can now go into ChatGPT and create a GPT that basically says, I want you to be ChatGPT, but I want you to be sarcastic in all of your answers. And it will be sarcastic in all of its answers. With just one simple sentence. Yeah. Right? With one simple custom instruction that you need to be sarcastic. So there's no real thinking going on, and there's no database. It's nothing like it. It's all patterns. And people struggle until people actually see demos with their own eyes. They struggle to get their heads around this technology and how powerful it really is. You know,
it's quite abstract and very difficult to understand, I guess, for people who are not really playing with the technology right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And that's why people are underestimating it. Even the people at OpenAI, they themselves get surprised every single day by the different types of things that ChatGPT can do. Yeah. Because they didn't build it for that. All they built was a conversational interface to access GPT technology. And they did not expect that suddenly it could do all of these amazing things.
So they haven't fully grasped yet the extent of this potential, probably,
they are now.
Yeah.
I mean, they are now. Go back to November 2022, they hadn't. But every day that people are doing amazing things, like even myself, when I'm working with ChatGPT, I tell people that imagine a scale from -100 to +100, where perfection in terms of the quality of work you would produce as Fahed or Lalaine, that's your 100. And -100 is what some polar opposite person would produce. Yeah. I tell people that typically you're aiming for, most people are getting to about, let's say, 2 to 5, where they go, it just broke through the creative block and I'm happy. I'm targeting typically anywhere between 75 to 90 in all the work I do with ChatGPT. I'm getting it as close to producing outputs as good as me, if not better, like all the time. And sometimes it goes all the way past 100. And I just sit back and I look at the screen and I just go, what did I just watch? What did I just do? This task I thought was going to take me an hour, it just got done in 1 minute, and I don't need to make a single edit to it. And I'm a perfectionist. I have a very high work ethic. So for me to actually look at a piece of work and say I'm not going to even edit it is very impressive.
That's
very,
amazing.
Very impressive.
Especially at that standard.
Exactly. And that's the point.
Definitely. Before I forget, for everybody out there, Fahed is actually the founder and he's a coach and he runs the ChatGPT Accelerator. Full disclosure, I'm part of, his earlier cohorts. I still have a lot to learn there, Fahed. So take us through the use cases. I know that we have this mountain to tackle, so it's not just about generating content or writing an article or writing an essay. What are the use cases? And then tell us about metacognition. Let's go back to that, the bottom of that iceberg.
It's good that you asked those two questions together, because when you ask about use cases, and many people ask that question. I'm actually delivering a summit for a ChatGPT for executives later in the month. And these are the types of questions they get asked, which are use cases. And quite often the answer is disappointing for people,
Yeah.
right? Because when you say use cases, what you're effectively saying is pigeonholing things into like these containers.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you asked this, and the second question you asked was about metacognition, right? So this is the use case is anything that your mind can do, ChatGPT can also do. Okay, I'll repeat that. Anything that your mind can do, ChatGPT can also do. All right, there are some things like, okay,
Super broad. Give us examples.
I'm going to get there. There are some things where it struggles, like, for example, with numbers and so on, okay? So, I mean, let's just take a look at today's podcast, right? Taking a look at today's podcast, the very first podcast I ever did, I'd never been on a podcast before. So I opened up ChatGPT and primed it on the topic of podcasts. And I said, look, I'm going to be a guest. What are the things I need to think about? So metacognition is all about thinking about thinking.
Okay, let's repeat that.
Okay.
Metacognition is thinking about thinking.
It's thinking about thinking.
That is so meta.
Right. Exactly. That's the whole point. So
Yeah.
if you think about, okay, we're going to take this pun all the way. So every single day, we're just working on autopilot without ever really being conscious of what's happening on the inside, in here and up here. So metacognition is all about stepping back and actually looking at it and being aware of it and thinking about these are the steps. Like, for example, let's just imagine you're procrastinating on something. It's to step back and go, why am I procrastinating? And to actually think about, like, why am I procrastinating? And then you start to be honest with yourself and you start to realize that this topic, I don't actually know the answers to it. And I feel uncomfortable doing it, etc. And that's why I'm procrastinating it. Or, there's a lot that depends upon this and I'm feeling nervous and so on. So when you say about use cases, like literally all the work that you do on a daily basis, the more knowledge work you do, the more use cases there is for ChatGPT. Even just thinking. That's
a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
It sounds so simple, right? Helping you think about what questions you might be asked at a podcast, but just applying that to regular life, to ordinary life, and all the things you need to think about, you need to figure out. That's such a big deal.
It's a really huge deal, right? And especially now, as the tech is getting more and more advanced, especially with like ChatGPT Vision, which uses uses something called Clip, where I'm driving a rented car. Since I've been in Dubai, I'm driving a rented car, and last week I scratched it in 2 places, and it's been bugging me on my mind. Like, what do I do about these 2 scratches?
Okay. You asked ChatGPT?
No, I took pictures of the scratches, and I shared the pictures with ChatGPT.
Okay.
And I asked ChatGPT, how serious are these scratches?
All right.
And it said to me, oh, this one is quite deep. This one has actually penetrated through the paint and it's reached the bottom layer. And this one is quite a surface layer scratch. You don't need to worry too much about it.
That's amazing.
They may not even notice. Because I'm asking it, should I go and pay for it to be fixed? Or should I just give it back to the rental company like this?
That's amazing.
And then it's telling me, oh, go and check your rental policy, go and see what insurance you have, et cetera, et cetera. So that thing that was been burdening me, like every time I get in the car, I see the scratches and it burdens me whilst I'm driving. Finally, I'm like, you know what, let me just deal with this burden, take a picture, chat with ChatGPT.
That's crazy. I mean, how many other people do you think use ChatGPT this way? Are there a lot of people that use it like this?
No. I openly tell people, if you follow me online, you'll see a bunch of claims that I make. That many people, I forgive people for doubting these claims, but they're true. One of them is that 99.9% of ChatGPT users are not really using ChatGPT. Really, they're just scratching the surface. And that's where this whole tip of the iceberg came. How I developed the model of the human ChatGPT iceberg is because all of the people that came to study with me in the past, when I would ask them, what brought you here? They would all say the same thing, which was, I sensed that my use of ChatGPT was just touching the tip of the iceberg, or they would say scratching the surface. One of the 2 phrases. And that's the reality, is that 99.9% of people are just scratching the surface, touching the tip of the iceberg. That's one of the claims. But it's accurate. I'm in a network of AI creators on LinkedIn. And with all respect to them, actually, let me just put it there, right? So these are the leaders.
Okay.
And even their usage is, I mean, it's not all of them, but many of them, even their usage is subpar. And the advice that they're giving their followers is very subpar. So that's the reality of the market. The other big claim, and I'm going to make it here,
Okay, yes, please.
with all humility, is that there's nobody in the world more better placed to teach ChatGPT than I am. And in our cohort, we had a chap called Ryan. And in his testimonial, after the thing finished, he said, Fahed used to make this claim. And when I joined the course, I was he was very skeptical chap, very good guy, very skeptical. He goes, I was always on the lookout to prove this point right or wrong. And having completed the coaching program, without a doubt is correct.
Yeah, because you're thinking about the technology in such, in so much depth. I would say, like you said, it's not just about writing, not just for emails and all of that. It's actually the way we think and how it supplements. I remember one time you even gave a funny example. You were consulting ChatGPT about marital problems. Like, I have a problem with my wife. What do you think is wrong, right? Again, metacognition. How should I think about this?
Well, I'll tell you the best one for that. If anybody, this is for all of your viewers and listeners, right? If any of you ever having an argument over WhatsApp, the best thing to do, go and copy the conversation, because that's the submerged part. You can't if you go to ChatGPT and say, I'm having an argument with my partner, give me some advice. Again, you're going straight to the tip of the iceberg without dealing with the submerged, the depth. The depth is, go and copy the entire conversation, paste it into WhatsApp, and say to WhatsApp, and say to into ChatGPT, and say to it, this is a conversation I'm having with my partner. I am Fahed, I am Lalaine, and he is whatever. Please help me to understand where I could be wrong. Like, what could be my mistakes in this?
Wow.
And help me to understand what could be his mistakes in this. And help me to figure out what I need to apologize for.
My goodness. Maybe where to buy a gift from and stuff like that.
No, wait. I did this with somebody. I was having this lengthy argument, right? And this person knows that I'm a ChatGPT, who I am, right? So I took this entire thing, put it into ChatGPT. I said, look, please, can you write, now, having analyzed this, please write an apology from me, okay, to this friend. And write an apology from this friend to me. I then contacted the friend. I said, look, I'll give you my apology if you give me yours. To help you out, I've prepared it for you. Right? And, so it's a big joke, but that's the reality of
it's amazing.
So, and the other thing, it's not just about the depth of the technology, it's also the breadth of the application. Because I've been exposed as a person, because I had financial independence from a young age. I've been exposed to so much, so many industries, so many professions, so many business functions that when I think about applying the breadth, I can apply the depth, I can then apply it to the breadth, So I forgot where we were. What was the question you were asking?
Yeah, it was about
case studies and metacognition.
And metacognition, yeah.
So metacognition is all about thinking, and that's where you can start to use ChatGPT so versatile. Like the versatility of it becomes unlimited. So what I tell people when they join my coaching program, I say, look, in the beginning, you do tasks thinking that AI cannot help you with them. It's too advanced. AI can't help me with this. Now you guys are with me in the coaching program. What's going to happen is eventually you're going to reach a point. You're going to say to yourself, hold on a second. I think ChatGPT could help me with this. And you go and use it, and it does help you with it. And you're like, oh, wow, amazing. My life has been changed. But then 30 years of habit kicks back in, and you go back to doing it the old way. And then 4 weeks later, you remember, hold on a second, AI can help me with this. And then you do that. What happens over time is that the time it takes for you to start the activity and to realize that ChatGPT can help you with it starts to get smaller. So it starts off as 28 days, then it becomes 20 days, then it becomes 10 days, then it becomes 5 days, then it becomes 1 day. What we're targeting is 1 minute. And at that point, you're synergized with ChatGPT because now you're no longer depending upon your own thinking anymore.
Okay.
Rather than that internal communication you're having, you're now having that communication with ChatGPT.
All right.
And ChatGPT is far more advanced than you. So the case studies are literally unlimited. Literally unlimited.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about a day in your life. as a ChatGPT expert user. But before that, one simple question. So ChatGPT is not my writing partner. ChatGPT is what?
Is your cognitive co-pilot.
Cognitive co-pilot.
Cognitive basically relates to all of the intellectual activities that take place inside here or here, wherever you want to call it, right? So it can partner with you with all of these things. Even introspection. You know, I'm not going to go into the story because I've told the story so many times, but there was a time that I was really pumped up to attend my first ever group yoga class, and I missed it. And so I actually went into ChatGPT and I said, look, I just missed this yoga class that I was so help me to understand what happened. And we had an entire conversation. The final conclusion was the recognition that I was suffering from a fear of judgment. Because you go to a yoga class and everybody's wearing the right stuff and you're not.
Exactly, doing the poses.
Everybody's doing the poses and you're not. Everybody is fit and you're not. And if somebody were to come to you and say, yeah, Fahed has a fear of judgment, they'll say, you don't know Fahed. There's no way Fahed has a fear of judgment. But in actual fact, I did. So in that case, what's the deliverable that anybody out there in the world would see? Is nothing. But me personally, what happened with me is that whole cognitive experience of introspecting was actually facilitated by a conversation with ChatGPT.
It sounds like your new best friend.
Not only is ChatGPT my new best friend, now you'll notice I smiled when you said a day in the life of a ChatGPT expert. My most recent use case, and I've been thinking, how do I share it with the world? And today I've got the answer. I'm going to share it in your podcast.
Okay.
My most recent application for ChatGPT, because at the moment here in Dubai, I'm basically living like a bachelor, is ChatGPT is putting me to sleep at night.
Okay. Hold on to that thought. We're going to take a break here just to thank our partners. Thank you so much, Rove Hotels, for supporting Challenger Brands.
This is Challenger Brands. Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. Follow us on our agency's social media pages, Illustrado.co, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, or subscribe to our newsletter via our website, www.illustrado.co. Thank you to our sponsors for today's episode. Rove Hotels. Rove Hotels are a jumping-off point for city explorers, simply designed for the young and young at heart. Born in Dubai, Rove is an award-winning lifestyle brand offering well-designed hotels, fuss-free service, and great value in well-connected locations. More than just a bed for the night, Rove provides rovers, the missing link to connect you to the city like a local, and explore the track less trodden in a relaxed environment where you can be yourself. With sustainability, local art, and high-performing functionality at the heart of its brand, Rove represents a new niche of hospitality for the digital nomad looking to become part of the neighborhood, even when they're just passing through. Please check them out at rovehotels.com.
Okay, having ChatGPT as your new best friend, using it as an entrepreneur, what does a day look like? Or, you were talking earlier about using ChatGPT to sleep better.
So ChatGPT has a bunch of functionality, and a lot of people don't know how to use it, when to use it, etc. And one of the functionalities is that on your mobile phone, you can actually have a voice-based conversation with it. So you talk to it and it will talk back to you with audio, right? And it's been engineered to talk in a very human-like way. So it has ums and ahs and pauses and so on, right? So as of 2 nights ago, I tried an idea. I said, okay, let me just have a conversation with it. And the goal is, because one of the things that keeps us awake at night is thinking about things. And one of the ways to put you to sleep is to focus on something. So if you think about it, if you're having a conversation with ChatGPT, your mind is no longer wandering in all of those things. Now your mind is focused on the conversation. So I said to ChatGPT, I said, listen, I need to go to sleep now. Let's have a conversation so that I can fall asleep. And it said to me, okay, would you like me to talk to you about something? I said, no. Let's talk about weight loss. Okay, because in the last couple of months, I put on a couple of kgs.
Okay.
And I just needed a reminder about weight loss and the science of weight loss and so on. So I just put the phone next to me and we're having this voice conversation with my eyes closed. And I'm still awake, I'm still talking. And then it goes, so are you asleep yet? I said to it, no.
It was waiting for you to fall asleep.
I said to it, no, I'm still awake. And it goes, okay, so would you like me to talk about something that's more likely to put you to sleep? I said, sure. He goes, well, would you like me to describe a beautiful setting in a place? And so I said, yeah, sure. And I can even read it to you now if you want, right?
That's amazing.
It started describing all of these things. And it's like you're in a place and there's a waterfall and you can hear the water and da-da-da, and you can feel the breeze passing through your skin, etc. And then it said something. I said, no, I'm still here, ChatGPT. It goes, oh, no problem. I'll continue then. And it continued. Mm-hmm. And if you look at my conversation, you hear me telling it, continue, and then suddenly it stops, which means I fell asleep.
And it stopped also.
And then it stops because it's only going to respond if I say something to it.
It's astounding.
So it got to a point where I've gone to sleep and that's it. Now it's deactivated.
That's amazing.
It's insane. It's insane.
I don't know if I'm going to be happy or if I'm going to be scared about that.
Well, I think when you need to be scared is when it starts connecting to all of your other data. At the moment, ChatGPT does not connect to anything else. It's just all the stuff you share with it. It's internal to the OpenAI platform, and it's not being shared with anybody else, not with advertisers. You should be scared if this was done through a Microsoft AI or a Google AI, and then the next day you suddenly see adverts for insomnia pills. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But right now, you don't have to be scared.
I see. Let's go back to the work dimension, right? Business and all of that. A lot of people are already using ChatGPT. What are the common mistakes that you see? What are the things that, I know that there's a lot out there because I see you sometimes reacting on LinkedIn. Tell us about these mistakes.
Okay, I'll tell you the ones that come to mind immediately without any specific order. The first one, because we just talked about it, is focusing on the tip of the iceberg whilst neglecting the submerged part of the iceberg. Going into ChatGPT and just giving it an instruction and thinking that it's going to produce something amazing, right? There's a lot of unseen work you have to do with ChatGPT in order to produce those amazing results. So, as the example we gave earlier with the WhatsApp, discussion. In fact, let's because that's a personal one. Let's go and take an actual business discussion, whereby maybe you've got an email conversation, and now you want to get the most strategic result. So you can load up the entire conversation and say, "Look, I need to achieve this result. What do you suggest my response should be?" So we're not talking here about, writing the email. We're talking about evaluating an entire dialogue so that ChatGPT can understand what is going on. Then, by disclosing what your objectives in the conversation are, it can now figure out how you should respond. And this one I will share with you, and I hope that he listens to it. I had a legal case a couple of years ago with my landlord in the UK. Took a year, it was very emotionally draining, really disrupted my life. And eventually I won because I won the night before the final hearing. He gave an out-of-court settlement. Earlier this year, we had another issue. And so I told ChatGPT, I said, look, I'm having another issue with my landlord. Last time I was very emotionally drained by the experience because it was very personal. This year, it's just not going to be personal. So I told ChatGPT, told him whatever. I said, listen, I want you to act as my barrister. So I primed it on UK real estate law, UK rental law. I primed it on what it means to be a barrister, and I primed it on the situation. And then I said, I want you to write a letter in the voice of and I primed it on the type of aggressive letters that barristers write. So all of this submerged work is going on, and then I said to it, now write him an email. This is the objective I want. Now write the email for me, and it did. He wrote back, I have no emotional connection to this thing anymore. So I said, look, this is the response of the landlord. Can you reply back to him, please? At this point, I did not even tell ChatGPT what I want it to reply because it understands all of the submerged parts.
You gave it all the background.
I gave it all the background, and now I'm feeding the guy's response into it. And I'm saying, can you reply back? Because there's nothing new value for me to add, and it did. And now the landlord, and that's why I said I hope he listens to this one day, he was having his entire conversation with ChatGPT. I was not part of that conversation. I was just feeding his stupid answers
That's the cherry on top.
Eventually, he goes to my children's mother in the UK, and he says to her, please, can you tell Fahed to take it easy? Tell him to just relax.
Wow.
He's being so aggressive.
It's like having a lawyer fight
it
for you.
was literally,
right?
like, now, of course,
It is,
there's
yeah.
caveats, right, to that idea of having a lawyer or an analyst or a therapist,
Okay.
etc. You can't just, you have to be aware of what those caveats are. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my brother is a lawyer. And recently we had to do something with somebody. And all I do now is I just put it through ChatGPT and I just show it to him. I said, any edits that need to be made? And that's it. So that's the first mistake, is going straight to the tip without considering the submerged part of the iceberg. The second part is treating ChatGPT as a hack. Right?
Okay.
Treating AI as
Yes.
a hack, right? What people are basically saying is, I'm going to keep on living the way I've always lived, keep on working the way I've always worked, and I'm going to use this tool to just give me a few productivity hacks here and there.
These ready prompts.
Exactly. These prompt
cheat
libraries,
sheets,
cheat sheets, etc. And they think that they can just copy and paste. It's just not like that at all. We are at the cusp of a human revolution. Our future generations will be nothing like us. We are in a migration phase at the moment. We are basically, I'm calling us AI migrants. So some terminology that I've been coming up with, that our generation are AI migrants. We started off in the non-AI world, and we're now moving into the AI world. Our children's children, not our children, our children's children will be AI natives. They're the ones that will be born just like today's children are born with iPads.
Yeah.
They will be they will be born with AI. And our children, the ones that are roaming around the world today, are kind of like misfits because they still haven't really lived in the world. And the AI still hasn't got to the stage where AI is like ubiquitous and all-encompassing all around us. And so some people, the AI migrants, some people like you and I, we're like, oh my God, we're going into a new world. This requires a complete revolution of the way that we look at the world, the way we think about the world, the way that we work, the way we act, the way that we do everything. And other people are like, no, I'm just as I am. And this is just a tool to make me more productive here and there. And unfortunately, by virtue of that, they can only get like 3% benefit. And so I have it time and time again when corporates are reaching out to me for training. They're like, can you do ChatGPT training? We have 3 hours on Friday afternoon and we want to train 50 people. I'm like, guys.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like this. It's like going back 30 years and saying, yeah, an IT literacy program that we want to do in 3 hours on a Friday afternoon for 50 people.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. In fact, this is far, far, far more advanced than IT, because with IT, traditional software, it's just if you press file, you'll get a menu. If you press open, it will open. Whereas with ChatGPT, it's not like that. It's unlimited in every direction. You have to rewire the way that you think and the way that you work to tap into it. So those are two huge mistakes. The third other mistakes is we talked about earlier on, which is anchoring into what people know. So they anchor into traditional software, they anchor into search engines, they anchor into traditional bots. Whereas this is a completely new technology that unless you understand how it works, they say knowledge is power. In this case, if you don't have the knowledge, you are being disempowered. You literally are being disempowered. And the very sad thing is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So people who are going into ChatGPT, treating it like it's a search engine, like it's a bot, like it's a traditional piece of software, they are creating impressions in their minds of what ChatGPT is, and it's not what they think it is.
It's self-limiting, isn't it?
It is
this kind of behavior, right?
Very self-limiting. In fact, that is the biggest mistake, is that ultimately people are self-limiting themselves by virtue of anchoring.
Yeah. I like the fact that you described, the way you described it, that we have to take care of the substance, the bottom of the iceberg, the bigger chunk of the work. It's putting in the substance, it's putting in the direction, the guidelines for ChatGPT to give you a proper output, right? So your output really depends on what you put in it.
Correct, yeah, of course.
And this is sort of very I mean, I like it, especially as a person who's running an agency, because for me, that sounds like I can still differentiate what I do in the market in a world that's supercharged with ChatGPT and everybody's using it, right? So there's still a chance to differentiate your work because of the quality of input. Can you speak a little bit about that?
100%. So again, let's go back to the iceberg, right? So the tip are the deliverables, and the submerged part are what you put into it. So deliverable means output. Your report is output. Forget about ChatGPT. As a professional, your output is the tip of the iceberg, and your input is what you put into it. So same thing, you can have two individuals, one of them put 30 hours with a good education, good expertise, good experience.
Definitely.
They poured into it, their output is going to be of far higher quality. They say that ChatGPT and AI is like a kind of level playing field, right? That is the default state of the AI. So people often ask me, do AI checkers work? Like if you give a document to an AI checker, can it check that it was produced by AI? The answer is, if you didn't put anything into it, yes, because it has its own default way of thinking and talking, etc., which the AI checkers are looking out for. But if you put lots into it, then no, they can't detect, right? So the same thing, those reports that you're making, if like, and this is one of the things that really irritates me about a lot of apps, AI-powered apps, and it's something that people need to be very concerned about for themselves, is that the more convenient AI makes your work for you, the more it's taking away from you. Which means that if you go to these apps that, for example, people are always saying to me, I need an AI to generate my presentations for me. You can now go to something and say, yeah, give me a presentation on like a successful podcast. And it will make the entire presentation. It will get all the content. It will figure everything out. It'll figure everything out. But there's nothing from you that was added to it.
Right.
So just imagine now we're going to get to a point where everybody's presentations sound bland. Everybody's LinkedIn posts sound bland. Everybody's bland and generic. And it's already started now. I love it when people use ChatGPT. I like the people that work for me. I encourage them to use ChatGPT in everything. I'm teaching people to use ChatGPT. But what irritates me is when I can see that it was produced with ChatGPT. Because if I can see that it was produced by ChatGPT, it means you didn't really put much effort into the submerged part. You just went straight to the tip, and you want me to appreciate that comment that you put on my LinkedIn post, even though I know you didn't do it? No. If I knew that you had put effort into it, it's like, for example, my son. One day he sent me a poem appreciating me as a dad. Now I know he did that with ChatGPT. Of course he did. But the points that were made in it were specific to him and I. And so I appreciated the effort that he put into it. He's not a poet, but he gave me a poem, which was the product of his discussion with ChatGPT, and I gave him a poem back. Also, do you see what I mean? And now we appreciate the kind of poetry we've sent each other because we put those effort into it. So that's really are we talking about still the biggest problem? Is I don't know where we're lost.
It's the bottom of the iceberg. It's the thinking behind the submerged part. Again,
and that's what you're saying about differentiation.
Definitely,
is differentiation in terms of the quality of the output. Depends on what you're going to put into it. And people think it's just the prompt. It's not just the prompt. It's giving it a prompt. People don't realize it. People think the prompt is just that text message at the bottom. It's not. In ChatGPT, the prompt is what you key in that box. And everything that came before it within a certain limit called the context window. All of that is the prompt. So you're going to feed it like the background, who you are, what's going on, what's happening, what's the things you're concerned about, what are the things you're trying to achieve, et cetera, et cetera. And by virtue of that, now you start to pull out what you want from it.
I mean, for example, in our case as an agency, as a branding agency, where a lot of, proposals are put together, a lot of copywriting and content writing is put together, right? The way we incorporate it is by first putting out our principles, because we've developed principles from our agency that we use for any kind of project that we do. And I think that is what makes the work different, because of the principles that we put in there, right? Which are not available with other agencies.
Exactly.
Or with other people. So we never ever churn work with no basis.
Yep.
So I think, that's one way to really look at it. What are the things that could go wrong with the usage of ChatGPT? I know that there are still limitations, and you've pointed this out, in your classes. What should people look out for?
Well, the first one was what we discussed, which is all that generic bland stuff. People think that they are getting away with this productivity hack because it wrote something for them. But what they don't realize is that everybody else in the world that sees it is going, ChatGPT. Right? So that's the first where people are going wrong, is producing generic bland stuff, thinking that they just saved lots of time. But in actual fact, their credibility is taking a hit, which is actually a negative return, right? Then after that is not actually understanding, because they don't understand how the model works, they think that it's thinking and that it's intellectual, whereas in fact that it's not, right? So sometimes you could say to ChatGPT, hey, I've got this idea, what do you think? Rarely will ChatGPT tell you it's a bad idea, even if it is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Rarely will it tell you.
Because it's trained to be polite, right?
It's been trained, exactly. Its system directives include things like being polite, being supportive, being helpful, etc. So people, they don't realize these things. And so they're like, I've got this idea and ChatGPT said it was amazing. Yay, it's amazing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead with my idea. Whereas what they should have done is ask it to critique the idea, in which case ChatGPT will list out the pros and the cons, etc. And then you start to use your own critical thinking to compare and contrast these and reach your final conclusion. Similarly, numbers, ChatGPT is still a disaster. Now, all of these limitations, they are working on day by day, trying to improve these limitations. So one of the biggest limitations up until recently is what they call the context window. And so the context window is basically the amount of text that came in the conversation beforehand that ChatGPT will consider when continuing the conversation. So the further back it is, it's the further back in a human's memory it is.
I see.
So you might, just like you might not remember certain details, ChatGPT's ability to remember those details starts to wane. So you'll notice, if you're having a lengthy conversation with it, you'll notice its performance start to diminish the further you go into the conversation. Sometimes the stuff you were talking about falls out of the context window. But because ChatGPT is so good at recognizing patterns, it can tell from the conversation what you're talking about without even knowing what the beginning part was. But it's not going to be accurate. It's just guessing.
So it's just it's a matter of giving it too much. It's a matter of balancing enough information and not too much information, right?
It's not just that. It's being cognizant of that, the length of that context window. So sometimes what you need to do is, let's just imagine now I am planning. What was I doing last night? I was planning this upcoming event for. That's what I was doing. I was working on the sales page for this upcoming event for executives. Okay, so I had the entire conversation with ChatGPT about what the event's all about and the objectives and And I said, okay, fantastic. We're done. This is it. This is what we're going to be doing. Now, propose the structure of the sales page for me, bearing in mind that this is not B2C. We're not talking to consumers. I'm talking B2B. I'm talking to executives. So bearing that in mind, give me an idea about the tone of voice that it should be written in, and also give me an idea of the structure of the way that the page should be done. And it did. I said, all right, so far, I don't have any of this content. Please propose headlines for me, headlines and subheadlines. And it did. I chose the headlines and subheadlines. So imagine that, deciding on the headlines and subheadlines, let's just imagine that took 10 message conversation. Once I established the headline and subheadline, I grab those and come back up to the top of the conversation. And I say to it, all right, this is my headline and my subheadline. Now help me figure out the introduction. We then have a 10 message conversation to figure out the introduction. Grab the introduction, bring it back up. This is my headline, subheadline, and introduction.
I love that.
So what I'm doing is, I'm resetting the conversation with updated information.
It's like it's starting afresh, right?
And it's starting afresh just at that point. So it's still completely primed on the event and how I want the sales page to be and the tone of voice, etc. Except we are not wasting the context window with conversations that are no longer relevant. So now we have a very concentrated conversation that allows it to produce amazing concentrated output. Otherwise, if it also has to deal with this entire conversation about headlines and subheadlines and
Exactly.
introduction and all of this stuff, the output it's going to give me is going to be very diluted.
There's too much
There's
information,
too much,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So much to learn. So much to learn. People should really get into this course, right? Again, the ChatGPT Accelerator run by Fahed. Please do check it out. We're going to be sharing all the links.
Thank you.
We're going to go to our next break, but I'm really dying to find out and find out really what you have to say about this. Are people going to lose their jobs because of ChatGPT?
This is Challenger Brands. Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. Follow us on our agency's social media pages, Illustrado.co, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, or subscribe to our newsletter via our website, www.illustrado.co. Thank you to our sponsors for today's episode. Rove Hotels. Rove Hotels are a jumping-off point for city explorers, simply designed for the young and young at heart. Born in Dubai, Rove is an award-winning lifestyle brand offering well-designed hotels, fuss-free service, and great value in well-connected locations. More than just a bed for the night, Rove provides rovers, the missing link to connect you to the city like a local, and explore the track less trodden in a relaxed environment where you can be yourself. With sustainability, local art, and high-performing functionality at the heart of its brand, Rove represents a new niche of hospitality for the digital nomad looking to become part of the neighborhood, even when they're just passing through. Please check them out at rovehotels.com.
So Fahed, are people going to lose their jobs because of ChatGPT?
Time frame is the main question. Time frame, location, there's a lot more to it than that. And we can't put the blame on ChatGPT, right? What ChatGPT did when OpenAI added the chat layer, they made AI accessible to everybody. And that then created this entire wave that we're experiencing, okay? And the way in which this wave is actually going to impact us, there are going to be, let's go back to 2004. At 2004, let's go to November 2004, none of us had even considered the word tsunami. Maybe we might have heard of it, but it wasn't a day-to-day word. And then we all woke up that day in December to find out that a tsunami had hit Southeast Asia and hundreds of thousands of people had died. Now, imagine being on a beach in, let's just say Thailand, for example, and suddenly the water has been swept away, and you've got no idea what tsunami is, and you have no idea what this is. And the kids are crying, and you're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen this before, and so on. Eventually, the water is going to come back, and it's going to come back hard. And we are at the phase right now of this drawback where companies everywhere are scrambling to figure this out. And the more and more they figure it out, the more and more that wave will start coming back, whereby it's not going to cause jobs to disappear immediately, but it's going to cause jobs to be reshuffled. So the first thing that's going to happen, if we're talking about in the corporate space, is that jobs are going to start being reshuffled, because jobs, like 50% of a person's job can now be handled by the AI. So now, what do you do with the other 50%? So now you're going to have to start consolidating positions and make people responsible for multiple things and so on. And eventually, there's only so much reshuffling that you can do. There's only so much moving around that you can do. Even if you say, we're going to generate more demand, because now we have AI, we're going to generate more demand for our business. Okay, but those customers of yours will eventually get access to AI as well. And so then the demand for your business is going to go down, and then you're going to have to let people go, whether you like it or not. So the short answer to your question is, let's not blame it on ChatGPT. Let's just say AI in general. In the long run, yes. In the long run, yes. And the people who are going to get hit the hardest are the people who are putting their heads in the sand right now. Because the people that are embracing AI are getting such a lead that those who have got their heads in the sand, by the time they get their heads out, may not be able to catch up with them. And by that time, the next generation, which is our kids, who are more adept at using AI, who will be more adept at using AI than those who kept their heads in the sand, they'll start getting the jobs, because the future belongs, I'll tell you now, the future belongs to those people who don't just use AI to get things done, but they also use AI to develop their own skills and learn. And what that means is, I'll give you an example. The first time I was asked to moderate a panel, I went to ChatGPT and basically had the entire conversation with it. Look, I have to moderate a panel. Help me to figure this out. And it went so well that the people who I moderated basically thought I'd been doing it for years, but I hadn't. I only had 1 or 2 days conversation with ChatGPT. So the future belongs to people that can do that. They can go into the AI, something like ChatGPT, learn how to get things done, understand the topic. So let's say, for example, now, my sister was asking me to help her son with his university application. Of course, I'm going to do it through ChatGPT. So my advice was, first things first, ask ChatGPT, what is this university application all about? Why do I need to apply? What are they asking me for? Why are those things important to them? Don't write it for me. Just help me to understand it.
Figure it out.
Metacognition. Exactly. Metacognition. Help me to figure it out. Now that I've figured it out, let me work with the AI to get it done. Okay? So those people that are not doing that at the moment, they're not adapting to AI, a time is going to come where they will be so easily replaced by somebody else. In fact, a number of research studies have taken place in the last few months where they found that people, juniors with support of AI, are producing equal result to seniors.
Scary.
Very scary. And the only way, if you're a senior today, the only way you can avoid that fate is if you become a senior that's using AI. In which case, now you've exponentially gone ahead of them, because they don't have that background and expertise and education that you bring to the table. They don't have that. So you go into a much higher position. So, and there's a lot of people that want to kind of gloss over this and go, oh, every technology that's come, it's created new opportunity. Yeah, but the thing is, this technology is one that the more opportunities it creates, the more it can perform those opportunities as well.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? So, okay, it's going to reshuffle, but when it reshuffles, whatever gap it's making, it can fill up that gap itself. And this is why OpenAI, many people don't know this, but OpenAI are one of the biggest supporters of universal basic income. Why? Why is the company that is at the forefront of all of this technology the same organization that is at the forefront of universal basic income? And Sam Altman, his personal project is a cryptocurrency, which is all based around personal identity. So when you get, and this is just me, making conjecture, but eventually for UBI to work, you're going to have to know who's who. And you're going to have a clean track record of who that person is to ensure that this universal basic income that's being distributed is being distributed fairly and equally and not being abused, etc. And you will need blockchain technology for that to happen. So this is the reality. Now, how soon will the wave hit each person? It depends on where they are. I suspect it will hit those cities where the cost of doing business is so expensive and the companies there are publicly owned, because they're always under pressure for operational efficiency. So they're always under pressure to reduce costs without the kind of humanity element to it. And so the biggest cost is salaries. That's the biggest cost of any business is salaries. And there's lots to be done in order to protect this. Governments have to be involved. A long time, in fact, not that long time ago, just go back 6 months ago, I was laughing at the 4-day work week. And I think that the 4-day work week will have to become inevitable. Because if we're trying to make people overwork, there will be less work for everybody.
Yeah.
So government will have to step in, and not just 4-day work weeks, but maybe even 4-hour work days to ensure that everybody gets employment and so on. Because one person can now do so many things everybody else will suffer. So, somebody asked me on a previous podcast, and I'll finish my answer to your question with this one, said, if there was one problem that AI could solve, what would it be? And people are thinking about like sicknesses and cancer and AIDS and all that stuff. My answer was the problem that it's going to create, which is human redundancy and unemployment. That's the problem that it also needs to figure out. Like, what is this new future? Because capitalism cannot survive in this model. There will be an uprising where people say, we can't do this anymore. It doesn't work.
It's very ominous.
You know what? It's very ominous. And the truth is that the first month I came to I understood this in December of 2022. At the time that I was opening up, so I'd been using GPT for a year, but I was opening up ChatGPT in December 2022 whilst also reading a book called, it's by a guy called Rubini. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's basically the 10, I wish I could remember the title. It's the 10 threats, mega threats, looming over humanity over the coming years ahead, and that there's a potential that they all happen at the same time. Like if one of them was to happen, it's a disaster. But there's a possibility that multiple will happen at the same time. And one of the mega threats is AI and the impact it will have on society. So I'm opening up ChatGPT, exploring all of these possibilities. Whilst people were still asking it to write poems, I was using it to write business plans. Whilst also reading this book about the mega threats, one of which is AI. And I actually spent December, many nights crying. There were sometimes I even collapsed in the shower, right? Collapsed in the shower, crying, wailing, realizing where all of this will eventually go. It's not going to happen overnight, but where it will eventually go. And that's actually the biggest impetus for me doing what I'm doing, is that I now have an opportunity. I can't help everybody. But for those that want to be helped, I'm laying the path for them. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, the short answer to your question is, yeah, people will definitely be left behind. Yes, jobs will definitely be lost. People can say it will be reshuffled, etc. But I'm an honest person. And a lot of the people in AI, and I am members of AI leadership communities, we all say the same thing. And we just don't do it in public. Because if you go out and do it in public and say all of this, all that does is put people off AI, which forces them to put their heads in the sand.
But it's unavoidable.
And that's why I say to people, I say, look, if you had a choice, and it's such a horrible thing to say, and forgive me for saying it, but if you had a choice to be on a beach being hit by a tsunami or riding the wave as a surfer, which would you choose?
Exactly.
And it's a very horrible idea that you're going to be riding a wave that is going to wipe out lots of people.
Yeah.
But it's unavoidable. I'm not the one. Like, if I went back to, I remember in January, February, I remember saying to myself, if I had a choice, I would rewind time and put the genie back in the bottle. Because we all had become accustomed to life, modern life as it is. Might be stressful, might be this, might be that, but we become accustomed to it. Whereas we're now going into a future that is going to completely disrupt this, and we don't have any answers. And the only answer will be there has to be the establishment of a new system, because capitalism is not going to work in this new system. Humans become irrelevant, and therefore there's no job for me to do to earn my money. So therefore, how am I going to live? Therefore, how does this system work? And so something new is going to have to come up.
And that's probably just going to be the first wave of it.
It's gonna be a really weird future.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people I know in their 70s, they're just feeling really grateful that they're in their 70s. Because they're just like, I'm not gonna have to live through this. They say it themselves.
It's crazy.
That I'm not gonna have to live through this.
How can people, I don't know, even protect themselves? I understand they need to learn the technology and all that. What should be the mind shift? How should it be? What should be the shift in the way we act?
It's funny you should say that, because I actually have a course on the attitudes for success with AI. And I know that the way we've just been talking sounds very pessimistic, but one of the number one things is actually optimism. And that's why what we just talked about, I don't really talk about it in the public sphere, because it just creates a pessimistic outlook.
It's a bummer, but we need to understand this, right?
We need to be aware of it, right? We need to be aware of it and then shift over. It's just like there's evil in the world. There is evil in the world. But if you are always focusing on the negative stuff, you'll always experience negative stuff. So you don't become ignorant to all the evil. You just become aware of it and then focus on the positive. Do you know what I mean? So that's one of the mind shifts, is definitely be optimistic. Be optimistic for yourself. You are responsible primarily for yourself and your near and dear, primarily. And then anybody else that you can help after that comes after that. Put your own mask on before helping others, as they like to say on airplanes. Then the next thing is, I mean, if it's inevitable, and it really is inevitable, it's not. Don't treat it like your enemy. Treat it like your friend, and find out, how can this friend serve me?
Be that surfer riding the wave, yeah.
Be that surfer, and you have to realize that this is a new world, and it requires you to learn. And that learning, if you really want to flourish, requires investment. You know, my program is a 4-week program, okay? And of course, it's not 4 weeks like day to day. It's, you know, the way we've structured it, and the coaching calls and all that kind of stuff. And I've had people come to me and say, I'm too busy to do the program. And my answer is, it's doing the program that is going to make you less busy. Those things that you're busy in, you will do them through AI as part of the program. But
again, adjusting the mindset.
It's adjusting the mindset. It's mostly mindset. And that's why I have these 15 attitudes, is mindset for success with AI. It's all mindset, because that mindset is what opens the door to everything else.
Final word of advice. I know we have that pessimistic side and the optimistic side. What's the final word of advice for people who are trying to do better in 2024?
That's a good question.
Apart from getting with the program, guys, get with the program.
That really is get with the program.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm really, really genuinely doing my best. I really am doing my best. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesman, and I don't even like the idea of selling.
You seem more like an oracle to me right now.
Thank you. But in terms of trying to convince people, the problem is that anytime you try to convince people of anything, they think that you're a salesperson. And they suddenly put up these barriers, and then they don't want to listen. They go, you're a salesperson. A lot of people are thinking that they're looking at the tip of the ChatGPT iceberg, and they're thinking, oh, this is easy. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. And that's why people like you and other students have entered into a 4-week program, spending a lot of money. But that's what you have to do in order to fast track your learning curve.
Definitely.
Otherwise, your learning curve will take more than a year.
For sure.
You know.
Anyhow, please do invite our audience and our listeners to your ChatGPT accelerator.
Well, look, I'm hoping that our conversation has done that already. I'm hoping that our conversation has opened people's minds to the potential, etc., and just created awareness. Again, I'm not a salesperson. All I can do is recognize that this is what's going on for humanity, and I'm here to help people make that adjustment from the old world into the new world. And those that want to be helped, I'm here to help.
Thank you so much, Fahed.
My pleasure.
So much words of wisdom today, and a lot to think about, definitely. A lot to act on.
Thank you.
I hope our audience and our listeners will really take this step this new year, you know, to adopt this technology, because like we said, it's unavoidable and it's necessary. So thank you again, and we wish you all the best in what you're doing, Fahed. Goodness knows, a lot of people need to hear from you. So I'm hoping that a lot of people will hear this and learn from this.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that was our episode for today here at Challenger Brands. We'll see you again in our next episode. Thank you.
Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. For more actionable insights on brand and business building, follow us on our agency's social media pages, Illustrado.co, or subscribe to our newsletter via our website, www.illustrado.co.